As we step into 2025, one thing is clear: de-dollarization is not stopping, it's accelerating. China and other BRICS nations are scared of President Trump, and it's making them more determined to reduce their dependence on the US dollar and establish themselves as a global economic superpower. Their secret weapon? Gold. In fact, China resumed buying gold. And you know what's even more telling? They underreport their buy. Doesn't it make you wonder why? They recognize its global value and its ability to withstand economic shocks. Gold is a global asset with innate value. It's tangible, reliable, and it's immune to economic manipulation. China and other BRICS countries want to be prepared. They just don't want it to be known. But this isn't about nations. It's about you. In a world of shifting economic power, gold is your personal hedge against uncertainty. That's why Noble Gold Investments can help you secure your financial future with gold. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com today to learn more. And with a qualified account, receive 10 1-ounce silver American Eagle coins. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. And remember, there's always a risk of investment and there's no guarantee of any kind. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast, and Happy New Year once again. We are excited to welcome good brother and friend, Mr. Greg Mannarino, back to the podcast. We always look forward to talking with him on a personal and professional level, and he's going to give us the latest musings he has on the financial updates. If you are new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share, as it helps the channel grow and lets others get the knowledge you have been afforded. As you know, Greg has a well-heeled background in finance with over 20 years as in the market and financial services, and a medical background as well, and just an all-around good guy. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing absolutely great, man. How about you?
Doing well, man. It's good to see you. And I was talking to you offline about being in Florida and thinking about you as I was one side and you were on the other. And we'll have to juxtapose that here pretty shortly.
That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, man. So as always, I want to respect your time. And so I want to get right into it with you. We have a lot of questions I've been preparing as usual. So I'm going to share the screen with you as I ask you this question, just to make a visual narrative here. So just bear with me a second. Let's see, that is not what I wanted to show you. So let me get out of that. Although I'm looking forward to seeing Gavin Newsom's recalled. That would be nice. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Let me know when you can see
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. So here's the first question. With exactly 1 week until the inauguration selection, Representative Earl Carter has introduced a bill, as you can see here, HR 25, that would ostensibly eliminate the IRS income tax as well as property tax. This seems like with a revamped Congress, it might have some real legs to happen. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on this.
Look, I'm for anything and everything that's going to help we the people. I'm not sure how we're going to pay for all this stuff here moving forward. I think, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff may just be talk. But look, we're in a bad spot with regard to the finances of our nation and the world. I think we're being pushed off of the financial cliff here. People are being strangled. Projections with regard to energy costs, food costs, and everything moving forward are pretty much off the scale. Um, look, any relief for the people, I think, would be okay. But people got to weigh this stuff out. What we have here clearly is a spending problem. That's what this nation has. And then why do we have this spending problem? Unfortunately, because it's the mechanism, it's the debt-based system. People cannot be allowed to know the truth. We're in a liquidity crisis, even though the world is in more debt today than it has ever been. There's not enough of it to keep the system functioning. They got to come up with reasons, created or not, even nightmare situations like over where you are, to keep the system liquid, and they're not done, in my opinion, here. So everything sounds good on paper. We'll see how this all works out moving forward. Until we get, honestly, someone that's going to lay out the truth and explain to people who the real enemy is here of the people. And that is, again, yes, sure, the IRS may be a good starting point, but it's central banking. And unfortunately, they are the strongest institutions in the world by far right now, on the back of inflating debt and deficits, which we're going to see expand, unfortunately, moving forward. So, yeah, man, look, like I said, I want people to, first of all, start holding their elected, selected, whatever individuals to some kind of account. There doesn't seem to be that anymore. There's no pushback. people, unfortunately, they've fallen into a trap, and that's been set for them. This state of learned helplessness. In other words, they're looking towards someone else to make their own lives better. They should be looking inward at themselves. We should be coming together, which we can't do. We're a conquered society, none more so here than the United States. We've been divided, therefore we've been conquered. So, unfortunately, people got to start standing up for themselves. We have to unite. Wherever people are, they got to realize the system is rigged against them. So, we'll see how this plays out moving forward. Although I believe we're going to see massive currency devaluation moving forward, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And the people are going to be forced, unfortunately, to be more dependent on the current system as we're bridged into a whole new paradigm and a whole new set of rules.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Just want to get your sort of your temperature on that. And I had asked this question to fellow cohorts, Bill Holter and Lynette Zhang recently. Bill, credit to him, about a year ago was talking about this. So I want to get your thoughts. Uh, we talk a lot about recession, but in actuality, as you know, Greg, if you look at the true numbers, according to John Rich, of the GDP, not the fake stuff we all know about, the real deal, we're actually looking at more than 5 quarters of negative GDP. I think we're closer to somewhere around 10, according to Bill. Wouldn't we really be in a depression and they just don't want to admit it?
I have been telling people for I don't know how long, we are in a period of time which is yet to be defined. And unfortunately, again, this goes back to what we were just saying a little while ago. All we're getting is propaganda. We're
Mm,
getting propagandized across the board. And I'm going to tell you something else. I believe that we're going to see more of that moving forward. There's a few themes that people are going to see. Unfortunately, we just started off this lovely new year. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to see more of the same, but to a larger degree moving forward. People must be lied to. They must be kept in the dark. They can't actually know what's happening. And um and then again, people are wondering why it is those that people that follow the mainstream media, not shows like yours, obviously, where they're getting the truth,
right.
but the mainstream media is telling everyone how great they're doing. We're rich, we're doing fantastic, but nothing could be further from the truth,
Mhm,
unfortunately. And people are getting squeezed, and they're going to get squeezed even harder moving forward, unfortunately. And that's why we're seeing the bridge being built into the new system so rapidly. It started before the election selection, whatever, and they already had everything was lined up. They just needed to put the right people in place, and that's what they've done.
mhm,
Unfortunately, we're going to see a much faster deteriorating economy. We're going to see, again, more currency devaluation on the back of artificially suppressed rates, possibly negative rates moving forward. And this is just a wrecking ball for the economy, and a wealth transfer effect, which is in full swing. And it's just, look, I hate to see this. I hate to see people suffer, my own neighbors, people, they've just been disenfranchised. And this and look, man, people got to start taking action, and it begins with themselves. Like I said, people have got to come together and
mhm.
start to hold people account for the lies, the distractions, deceptions, and the propaganda. Even with regard to inflation today, we got these numbers. The prices are still rising. Imagine our shock here. But it could have been worse. You can't make this stuff up. But no one's being held to account. No Federal Reserve president or the chairman who's responsible for monetary policy. Well, it's the Fed. It's not presidents, kings, queens, dictators, or monarchs. But no, there's no accountability, and there won't be moving forward either, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I share your sentiment, of course, Greg, about being concerned for others and the way that, as you said, and the key word I took out of what you said is accountability. But as we're proactive, we start working together as a community, galvanize, awaken, right? But the good thing is about your podcast and mine is that we're part of that, hopefully 1% and growing, that is going contrapuntal to what they say, just doing the opposite. By arming ourselves with the right information, we can actually take part of this wealth transfer and then help others accordingly, which obviously is your and my aim here. So with that
We're
being,
trying. We're trying.
that's all we can do, is
Yeah.
we do our best, we let God do the rest.
Yeah.
We see the growing discussion and possibility of Canada becoming a 51st state. Canada, as you know, offers many advantages in terms of resources, one of the largest amount of gold reserves, land mass, um, as well as a willing group of residents that are looking for real and impactful change. How much of a possibility do you think this opportunity presents?
Zero. and it's not happening.
Okay.
I have a lot of Canadian people who want nothing to do with anything here. Look, man, as far as the United States, we're being alienated around the world. They don't want our dollars. No one wants our products,
Mm,
unfortunately.
mm,
Like this is a lot of talk, a lot of it's just there's no way this is becoming the Canada is going to become the 51st state. I would like to see more cooperation between I guess if you want to say world leaders, but it's really we the people who need to govern ourselves. We don't, and it's the truth, and we need to really understand what that means to be able to govern ourselves here instead of putting faith in the wrong places, which people generally do, leads to their own destruction. I personally don't see this happening in any way. I would be shocked if it were to happen or if it would benefit. I can't see how this would benefit us here merging the Canada and the United States. Like I said, I have a lot of people, well, and you do too. I'm certain. I don't know what kind of feedback you're getting from these people, but I've already gotten feedback from a lot of people on the back of what they're hearing, and they're like, "This just ain't gonna happen." I don't think the people, at least, uh, understand what it is. I just can't see this happening, honestly. And I think we got to start fixing our problems here
mhm.
before we start moving outward. Who wants to live under the rulership of the Federal Reserve or even any central bank for that matter, even the Canadian central bank? This is where we got to start to make a difference. We got it. These institutions are the enemy. We're not each other's enemies anywhere in the world, but these central banks have us at each other's throats, and they're all driving us in the same direction. I say that's the root cause of the problem. It's not a matter of merging this country and this state with this. It's a matter of doing something about these institutions, but unfortunately, nothing's going to be done. We've watched these institutions here be vaulted to the pinnacle of power under the last three presidents, and it's going to continue here. Not a single question about monetary policy during the run up to the presidential selection. Not one. As we knew, I said it wasn't going to happen. I said, well, we weren't going to hear one question about the monetary policy nor the Federal Reserve during the debate, the clown shows over there, because people can't be allowed to know what's going on here. That these are the ones that are pulling the strings. And what will happen with regard to whatever, it's by their doing. We don't have a voice anymore. People believe they do, but they don't. Unfortunately, it's those that control the cash control the world. And unfortunately, this has become a perversion of what I think it should be. This is people can't govern themselves. They've lost the ability to even want to. And they've been so indoctrinated into believing that the system still exists, which it doesn't anymore.
Mm.
But look, man, I think the bottom line is people need to start to come together everywhere in the world, whether it's Canada and the United States here, and realize that we have the ability to control our own destinies, not whoever, whatever figurehead they stick behind, whatever desk it may be. It's we the people are supposed to be able to govern ourselves. But unfortunately, that's not the way it's played out. And people are surrendering their liberties and freedoms so they can be taken care of from cradle to grave. This is not the way it's supposed to be.
I don't think I could say any better than that. And to your point of, yeah, we've received mixed reviews about it. Some are for it, some are not. But ultimately, you're right. We need to remove the private Western central bank, and the best way I think that can happen is we, the people, need to rise up and come together. There we believe there's more of us than them, but we have to take, I'm saying collectively, proactive steps, to counter that. And you're absolutely right. We do need a sound money system. We just need to go back to basics. Is really what I think it comes down to. Let me show you another slide here if I can. Let me see if I can pull this off. You should see this in
It's
a
coming
moment,
up.
Greg. Yeah, it just takes a second here. So there's a
It's
couple,
okay.
there's a couple nights ago, talking about crypto, of course, for a second, Greg, which is a hot button for both of us in a good way. We see that Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, and his colleague, Mr. Alderati, were at Mar-a-Lago with President Trump last week, which sends a clear and present message about XRP's implementation and dominance into the crypto ISO 20022 blockchain space for, as you said, the aforementioned new digital asset-backed economy. Currently, XRP is one of the third largest crypto coins and growing. What does this send to you in terms of a message about the new incoming system, and what level of interest or excitement does this bring to you?
Well, I don't think this is any secret. This has been in the works for a very, very long time. We all knew this was
Mhm.
coming. The
Yeah.
bridge to the new system is in full swing, started prior. to the election selection, depending on how you want to look at that here. All the pieces are in place here. We're being moved further and further away from a constitutional money system. I think that's pretty obvious, and being thrust into a system which I don't think people voted for, nor they actually really want. I think people like you and me and the people that follow our work have been well versed and well aware that they need to have some of this stuff in their portfolio. Um, and I still say that's the case here. Right now, even at their current prices, I expect to see volatility. Anyone that's in this space knows that's what we're going to have here. The major banks are now, and these institutions have become the whales, and they're going to move this wherever they want. But I think it's just still a way for us to look. This has become almost a survival mechanism here as people are being systematically wiped out via the mechanism of artificially suppressed rates and currency devaluation. You must. I look. I don't know another way to say this that I've been telling people for I don't know how long that they need to have some exposure to this. I'm not overall thrilled that we're not going back into a constitutional money system instead being made the crypto capital of the world. I don't think this is the right direction for us. So I think we need a commodity backed system, which is, I mean, I believe the backbone of a free society. Unfortunately, that's not where we're going in any way, shape, or form. And I think the bridge here being, mainstreaming cryptocurrencies, which a lot of people are against, and some people are for mainstreaming it, deregulating the banks. In fact, they're talking about no regulation with regard to the banks and merging them with cryptocurrency. I think this presents a danger to people. I really, really do. But what they're going to do, and they're already starting, they got to make people comfortable with it. Little by little, incrementally, almost like the boiling frog, until again the dollar is clearly being phased out along with
Yeah.
other central bank issued notes which have been under attack since their inception, as central banks here are in a race to the bottom. I've been trying to tell people that for over 10 years, sucking the purchasing power away little by little, only to implement a system of control. That's really what this comes down to.
Mm.
The ability to track and trace every single transaction that people make down to the thousandth of a cent. You want to lend your friend $5, you can't do that anymore without that being tracked. Unfortunately, the system that we're moving towards is all about control. And I think we haven't even seen anything yet with regard to that. I think this is a big part of it. As I said, look, man, I really believe this, and I'm going to say it again, that if people don't gain some exposure here to these assets, they've missed out on a lot already, and they're going to miss out on more moving forward, unfortunately. But people are resistant, and people don't like change. I get it. We can't stop it. Whether people like it or not, that's where we're going. I think that's it's pretty obvious to me, and I think it's obvious to you, and probably the people that follow our work
Mhm.
understand that too. But look, sometimes people, unfortunately, they don't push back. Again, there's no accountability for this at all, and I don't think there's any pushback. In fact, I haven't seen any, and I'd be very surprised if people are writing to, let's say, President-elect Trump and saying, you know what, we don't want this. We'd rather be going back to a constitutional money system. They're not doing it. No one is. The amount of people that are probably doing it are probably infinitesimal. It's not
Mhm.
enough to raise any eyebrows here. So just get used to
Right.
it. I think you know that that's where we're going. It seems pretty obvious to me. And then the thing that I don't like mostly about it, if I had to pick one, would be this is just a bridge into, I believe, full tokenization, which I've been talking about for years. That's where we're going here, to a tokenized system, a cross border system. Again, just to simplify it all. Almost, I mean, look, this is something I think we've all known about was eventually going to come, and to me, this just looks like nothing but a bridge to, because I believe the eventuality is full tokenization of everything, and making everything into a tradable asset here, along with tokenization. I mean, I've written papers on this. I've done videos on it. People should look it up and understand why things are the way they are, and how it's being set up by people right now. Unfortunately, and it has nothing to do with people that are being selected to be in power. This is all a central bank plan, quite obviously, as we're being moved away further from a constitutional money system. The dollar, specifically here, other central banks, they're all in the same boat. They're all doing the same thing. They're all pushing the same agenda, unfortunately. And I don't think the people, except maybe people that follow our work, are going to benefit from any of this here as we move forward. Again, I think it's more about control, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, the key word I also heard you say was transparency, which, ultimately is bad but good in the short term, because if we can be transparent about it, know what's coming, again, we can move counterintuitively against it. But you have to know what the facts are before you can make, counter moves. And again, that's part of what you're helping us to do. Interesting thing here I saw, Greg, this week, or I should say last week, we saw President Trump announce publicly that if he didn't get the hostages back by the time he was in the White House, they'd be held to pay for the Middle East. Then, interestingly enough, Greg, there was an announcement of him and an envoy going to see Prime Minister Sudani in Iraq, who we've talked about before, which ostensibly and ultimately takes the hand of Iran, their big brother, off of Iraq. What imminency does this present to you in terms of bringing the revaluation? As we enter 2025, de-dollarization is accelerating. China and BRICS nations are reducing their dependence on the US dollar, and their secret weapon, gold. China is buying gold, quietly underreporting their purchases. Why? Because they know gold's global value, its ability to withstand economic shocks, and its immunity to manipulation. This isn't just about nations, it's about you. Gold is your personal hedge against uncertainty. Noble Gold Investments can help you secure your financial future with gold. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com now, and with a qualified account, receive 10 1-ounce silver American Eagle coins. Remember, there's a risk of investment and there's no guarantee of any kind. Of the dinar and other currencies, as well as that devalue to revalue movement you were talking about earlier.
I think Iran still has a target on it. I think Iran has had a target on it for quite a long time.
Mhm.
And it's just a matter of time before this gets worse here. The United Nations just recently, I think it was even last week, put out a report that they're expecting to see Middle East. It's not never stops. The place is in
Mhm.
it's turmoil since time immemorial. It's not going to stop, unfortunately, moving forward. And there's other agendas going on here. Of course, a big part of this is going to be crude oil, which is the lifeblood of the system. The investment banks have leveraged beyond their eyeballs in crude oil. They're not going to allow it to fall. I think we're going to see energy prices move higher. All this stuff is just this theater. Unfortunately, we'll see what happens here. I don't think the threat of all hell breaking loose in the Middle East, for which it is already right now, it can't be any more hellish than it is right now. And certain people being systematically erased is the way to possibly, people use this, they say this is a tactic of negotiation. Okay, whatever your perception might be, I think the grander scheme is, again, understanding the mechanism and the fact that crude oil remains the lifeblood of the system, and there is no way that we're going to see energy price. You can drill all you want. We're not going to see the price of crude oil. I think this year the prices, depending on how we see the Middle East unfold, could be stable or higher. I can't imagine them going much lower moving forward, depending on, I guess, obviously geopolitical situation. But it also comes down to purchasing power of the currency. It's not about the price of crude or the price of energy. It's about what can the currency itself buy. And I believe that we're going to see a vast currency devaluation with the Fed on their pathway here to
Mhm.
lower rates, and that it seems like, even despite the fact that we've found out today, the producer prices are still high. Now they're waiting for the CPI. I think that's coming out tomorrow. It doesn't matter. It's not going to dissuade them. And then we got President Trump's own promise of lower rates during
Mhm.
the campaign. And lower rates means what? A loss of purchasing power. These things tie together. So, look, I wouldn't be putting too much faith in any kind of peace plan with regards to the Middle East. We've been hearing about this as far as I'm 60 years old, on the threshold. I've been hearing about that for 60 years. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, unfortunately. And we got to look again at the bigger picture. Crude oil, the investments in crude oil, the dollar, and unfortunately other factors too. So I personally I don't have much faith in the fact that the Middle East is all of a sudden, just because Trump is going to be behind the resolute desk, we're going to see a utopian society develop out of it. So, but we'll see how it plays out. I hope it will be, but
Mhm.
if history is any guide, it certainly isn't going to prove to be the case.
Well, it's definitely time to change history. You're absolutely right about that. It's been overdue. And Yeah, there's no doubt, Greg, that they're tanking the Federal Reserve dollar. It's nothing. There's no value to it in any way. So, but it's what you replace it with, like you said, is the key. Is an interesting thing that I noticed here, Greg. You probably noticed it too. That excuse me. Recently, the NZBA, also known as the cleverly an acronymed Net Zero Banking Alliance, is having a pullout or withdrawal of 8 to 10 banking financial institutions. What surprised me is the first players were Goldman Sachs, our buddies, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, Vanguard, State Street, with the promise of more to follow. So I guess the question is, would you say this is an about face for the corrupt, or is there something more to the story as it relates to carbon tax implications?
Dude, all I have to say is this. I'm not overly familiar with what we are talking about, but all I can say is these institutions, all of them have their self-interest in mind.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, they're predatory and it's not going to stop. And wherever the cash is, that's where these institutions are going to be. If they have to squeeze the people to death or tell them this and then pull something off in the background, that's what they're going to do. I think the entire banking system is the most corrupt of probably them all. Who finances all the nonsense that's going to these institutions, especially the Goldman Sachs, the JP Morgans, all these massive investment banks who have, and what people aren't even being told about right now. Well, actually, there was a story recently on Bank of America holding all of this bad debt. I mean, they're all awash in it. These institutions are holding untold amounts of trillions of dollars in bad debt, and the defaults are already off the charts. Bond losses are probably this is all being hidden from people right now. What's going to happen to all that? All people's pensions and everything that's associated with that. How about these California fires? What are people not being told? I'm gonna tell you what's really getting under my skin here. You got all these insurers here that we understand what's going on there, but these insurance companies, what they do is they package these up and sell these off to investment banks as credit default swaps. And then we're being told that we're going to have to bail the system out. We, the people, it's all over the mainstream media. There's no money. But hold on a minute. Why are people not being told that these same institutions that you just named are responsible more than likely for the losses? They're not going to be forced to pay. We are. That's how it's going to work out, unfortunately. Every people don't even know. I asked people, I said, how many of you know that these insurance companies here, they package their risk up and they sell these off as credit default swaps to these institutions? So you think they're going to be able to account? No, they're not. I don't believe so at all, especially because what we're seeing here with the deregulation of banks and the mainstream of cryptocurrency, it's all come together. People aren't going to win, no matter how you look at it. We, the people, are in a lot of trouble, and I think it's going to get a lot worse moving forward. I don't want to see more deregulation of these institutions. I want to, first of all, that's what we're going to get. And I think we're pretty much on the same page. That's what we've been hearing about. And I think this is a big problem. Where's the pushback on that? What happened last time? The financial crisis, the meltdown here. Oh, and now first of all, nothing was fixed, as I think we all know, and we're marching right back into that to a grander scale. I'll tell you where things are really going. The economy is going to come apart faster, and we're going to see negative rates. And then they're going to say, well, you get this whole thing that's being set up right now. You got Trump is going to say, well, the Fed should be cutting rates more. We should be going zero, even to negative. The Fed's going to push back and say, well, we'll do it when it's appropriate. What does the Fed want to do? They want to cut rates, of course, so they can inflate. But they're setting this up. It's a game. And
Yeah.
the people are being played like a grand piano, unfortunately, as they always are. And it never changes. I want to know when people are going to freaking wake up and realize they're always being played. And big business and the corporate agenda never, ever has their best interest in mind. They have their own and those of their shareholders and their families, period, the freaking end. The rest of us, they utilize us as cattle, a means to an end, and that's all, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and it's sad, Greg, because I think people, unfortunately, the vision and
It's
facing.
greed and disgust, and they don't care what they got to do to the people here. They understand that the system is coming apart. Not only do they understand it, it's being done deliberately. We're not here by any accident. No comedy of errors got us to where we are now. It's all been a design, all baked in. And what's the root cause of the problem? Currency devaluation on the back of artificially suppressed rates. That's it. So it's an economic wrecking machine, and we're going to see more of that moving forward, not less. So you can take everything else and just throw it out the freaking window. As long as we're seeing artificially suppressed rates, possibly zero, possibly negative, more currency purchasing power destruction, how are the people supposed to get by in this? You can't. People need to take action, as you and I have been telling them for the longest time, betting against the debt, becoming your own central bank, gaining exposure to cryptocurrencies here. In terms of Bitcoin, let's just say the price of
Mhm.
housing has gone through the floor. In terms of dollars, is skyrocketing. So you can look at this from many different kinds of perspectives here. And I know that you and I have done to the best of our ability, to try to get people to understand it. And still, we can't get through to everybody. And I understand that. I'm not expecting that. And we can't. But again, realizing the system is being taken apart. No matter what they do, one person sitting behind whatever desk, in this case, the Resolute desk, is not going to change the world or the way that it's going, the trajectory here. The fact that a handful of families control the entire world, the financial system, the central banks, and everything else. We are being eliminated. And that process moving forward, in my opinion, just by connecting the dots, is not getting any better anytime soon. So that means what? Take action, people. Listen to Jon here, and hopefully take something away from these videos and understand what's going on a grander scale. Because unfortunately, I think people are going to be forced to suffer a lot more. Anyway.
I have to just pray against that. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. And then taking the action coupled, as you know, Greg, with changing our mindset is really critical. And that's what we're aiming to do here. I was glad you brought up the bond market, Greg, because that was one of the other questions I had for you. Is just have a couple more. With respect to the 10-year Treasury bond yield, we haven't talked about that in a while. So as you're looking at your MMRI markets that you do so cogently, I was curious to see what your short and long-term projections are for the 10-year Treasury bond yield on the backs of the BRICS discussion, which we'll get into in a minute, and their precipitous move to pull away from said dollar.
Well, I mean, of course, anything that look, the bottom line is what we have is, and no one knows this, is the system is illiquid. It's running out of cash. The fact that we have a global debt problem here, yes, we do. But the fact of the matter is, this is going to sound bizarre, is we don't have enough of it. The system is debt dependent. It operates in this perpetual vacuum, which can never be filled. And they understand that. That's why the current system is coming apart. And what are they doing? They're trying to fuel it with more debt. That's why we're seeing global debt surge at the same, and that's why we're seeing these issues in the global debt market here selling off. And they're blaming the bond vigilantes. Again, it's all about assigning blame. Bond vigilantes. I've never met one bond vigilante. Have you? You probably haven't, because these things are mythical. But what they're doing is they're assigning blame. Like they use, it's the bond vigilantes. It's not the fact that the system is illiquid, that the system is running out of cash. And that's where you're seeing things like fires and expansion of debt and war and whatever else they got, and scamdemics and whatever it might be. They have to come up with any and every reason imaginable, things that we can't even think about, to inflate the system. And if that means cutting rates, that allows central banks to inflate as well and devalue the currency. Why do you think the BRICS nations don't want anything to do with the dollar or the world? They realize what's going on here. And still, the dollar does remain, on a relative strength basis, the prettiest bell at the ball, and it will, at least for the foreseeable future, until it doesn't. But it all is, again, look, the greatest threat to the world right now isn't nuclear war or anything else. It's the fact that we are in a debt market hyper bubble, which is a financial monster, which is going to engulf the world when it goes off again. What are they doing here? To try to keep the system, the illusion of liquidity, we're seeing global debt expand. You got central banks devaluing their currency. What does this allow them to do? Issue more currency, because now, and currencies are units of debt, allows them to keep the system more liquid. The illusion of it. Now, the fact that we're seeing the global debt market sell off here, I mean, look, central banks have a lot of firepower. They could get in here collectively and start buying more debt. We've seen, as you mentioned, the 10 to the 30 year here spike on the back of the Fed cutting rates. The last FOMC meeting was, I got out of the market on that day. As a matter of fact, I'm 90% out of the market, right? 90% out of the stock market, because I don't like what I'm seeing here. The MMRI is clearly in the red zone. I think it's sitting at like 326 at the time I am doing this here. There's a lot of risk in this market. Meanwhile, we got the fear and greed index pointing at fear. You should be seeing buyers here. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bounce in the market. But the fact of the matter is, we have a big problem. And it all comes down to liquidity. And there's not enough of it. They're going to keep pumping the system as the bridge is built into the new system. And once the bridge is built Then maybe they'll let the whole thing come down. I don't know. But I can tell you, these central banks, I don't trust them, and you don't either. And I think they're gonna who knows what they're gonna do. And I've been telling people, be ready for anything here. Be ready for absolutely anything as a mechanism to allow themselves to inflict maybe another scamdemic, maybe more war, maybe a terrorist attack, maybe they'll burn down half the United States. Just so they can allow themselves. Where's the cash come from? We don't have it. These institutions that are holding those credit default swaps, like I was saying, you think they're going to pay out? No, they're not going to pay out because they're already being the mainstream media is already letting us all know there's no cash. But they're not being told that these insurers, all of them, use the same mechanism, credit default swaps, to protect their risk.
Mm.
But no one's being told about that. It's incredible, man. I tell you, this situation is it's very dire, bro.
Well, that's why, again, Greg, we're betting against the system, both of us, and
Yes, we
helping
are.
and implore our audiences to do so. Speaking of betting against the system, this is sort of an articulation, Greg, on a previous question, but we need to cover it. And I only have a couple more for you, this being one of them. Speaking of BRICS, they recently had 10 additional nations join onboarding, as you know, Kazakhstan, Indonesia, Belarus, Thailand, just to name a few, with 25 more nations in tow immediately to jump on board. Here with us stateside, having little to no confidence in the dollar, which we've talked about. What is your estimation in the imminency of BRICS pulling away from the dollar and backing into their own respective currencies, hard assets in the ground, as a means of nationalizing, protecting themselves, as well as geopolitical infrastructures?
I think that's absolutely going to play. And the fact that when, it was kind of funny, President Trump did threaten the BRICS nations that if they try to sidestep the dollar, that, action is going to be taken. They're laughing, of course.
Reverse psychology.
It's an incredible thing. But look, man, the BRICS nations are going to do what they got to do, and I think more than like who really, honestly, in their right mind would not even people who follow our work want to be in the dollar. I don't want to be in the dollar right now. I'm in a pretty large freaking cash position, unfortunately, because I pulled out of this market. I hate it. I don't want to be there. I intend to, and I will. I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm doing. I intend to buy more physical metals, more specifically silver. I'm going to buy some more gold, platinum, palladium. Not too sure about that. I do intend to add to my cryptocurrency positions moving forward. And when I do these things, I will let everyone know in my newsletter, which is 100% free, Substack. Anybody who wants to follow my work, look, and when I do things in the market, look, my situation may be a little different than let's say the average guy or the average girl out there. It doesn't mean that people should mimic what I do, but I
Mhm.
think it should allow them to understand maybe if they have the ability to let's say get out of the dollar, they should do this because the dollar is a dying asset. It's not going to stop, along with other central bank issued notes here, as our system is being pulled further away from the dollar, and the BRICS are doing their thing over there. Look, I think this is setting up an interesting set of dynamics moving forward. And with that, I would believe that the bridge to the new system is going to be built quicker. And that's going to
Yeah.
be an interesting dynamic to follow moving forward. Interestingly enough, but I have to say this: we live in very interesting times, people. You have to say. We really, really do. But look, the bottom
Yeah.
line is this: all this is fun, and all this is well and good, and it's great to pay attention to because we have no choice here. But the fact of the matter is, man, I think today, the people of the world, we need each other more than ever because we're being systematically eradicated.
Yeah.
I believe we're moving towards a neo-feudalism. I've been warning about this for 10 years. Extreme haves, extreme have-nots, and elimination of the middle class. And a lot of this is propaganda. You're going to hear about more propaganda, how great people are doing, how rich we're doing. We're doing fantastic. The economy is strong. And people are going to wonder what's happening to them. Why can't I survive in this? If everyone's rich and we're all doing great, why can't I get by here? And I think the grand finale is going to be the meltdown in the debt market, which is going to wipe people out. Because again, it's just too simple to know and this is what we're seeing now with the global debt market selling off. Is this the prelude to what I've been telling people is going to happen eventually? That is a meltdown in the debt market here, spiking rates across the board, world stock markets cratering through the floor faster than people can sell, which means people are going to, obviously run to the door at the same time here. People's investments are going to get wiped out, and then cash is just going to move. It's going to move from one reality into another, and I still say it's going into commodities, gold, silver, especially
Hmm.
here, and into
Hmm.
cryptocurrency.
Yep.
So you got to keep yourself hedged. And that's another thing. Any people, there are a lot of people who even follow my work, and they're like, okay, Greg, you know what? I'm all in on this. In other words, I'm not in anything else. And I think that's very dangerous here. I do believe, yes, what I said. And so a lot of people are all in on crypto. They have abandoned gold and silver. And I think
Mm,
that's a big mistake. I think right now the prices of gold and silver are so incredibly suppressed. And
yeah.
again, look, cash seeks yield. We all understand that. And that's why we're seeing this big move as into cryptocurrency. You know, the crypto president, the Bitcoin president, were being bridged into the new system. It's quite obvious what's happening, and that's what we've seen with this one heck of a run up. But I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that this is still an asset class that is not. It's held by a few whales mostly. So you should expect many whales. I think it's expanding. But the fact of the matter is, I understand that it's not for everyone because of the volatility. People want to put X amount of dollars in whatever asset and they expect it to go straight up without any, randomness to the price action. That's not what you have here with regard to cryptocurrency. A stock market that's done nothing but go straight up here. This is not normal either. So we're well overdue for at least a significant correction here. But all this, everything we're talking about is predicated on one thing, and that is again action in the debt market. And what we're seeing as of late should raise everyone's eyebrows. The sell-off in the debt market, now the rising of the 10-year yield here, the sell-off in the debt market is obviously causing yields to spike and putting pressure on the stock markets of the world. I mean, it's just too easy to understand. I mean, the stock, we don't even have markets in this world. People like the stock market, even me. Okay, we don't really have a real market. What we have is nothing but a distortion of reality, where instead of fundamental factors driving the price action of assets, we have a debt market here, hyperbubble, which has become the driver of the stock market, meaning the stock market is nothing but a derivative now. It's all it's become. And everything is going to be reduced into a derivative via the tokenization. I want people to start understanding where we're going. And there's just no way out of it anyway moving forward. But that's where we're going with regards, at least in my perspective.
Mhm.
Could I be wrong on everything I said? Maybe. But I want people to go up to, look, listen to what we say, think about it for themselves. Everyone, look, hopefully people are using their God-given intellect. It's a gift. We all have it. People know the
Mhm.
truth when they hear it, and people should know a lie when they hear it too. When it hits you the wrong way, people know, wait, hold on a minute. That doesn't hit me the right. If I've said something that doesn't hit you the right way, well, do your own
Mm,
research. And if
right.
I've said something here that you say, hey, you know what, Greg did a point, well, then do your research there too.
Yeah.
But again, like I was saying, man, we got to come together. We're divided and conquered, unfortunately. And if people don't, and why do they do this? We're deliberately divided so we can't come together to elicit change.
Yeah.
That's what they fear the most. A
Right.
group, a populace that can come together, that will hold people to account. But that's not what we have. We have the polar opposite, bro. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but again, our greatest strength is our asset. If we continue to do this, we can help bring as many people to the table as possible, as we said at the beginning of the podcast. And just to touch on what you said with cryptos, and because that's going to segue to my last question, let's remember, Greg, that it is tied to BRICS because it's part of the new blockchain system, which is going to help move these currencies and the new digital blockchain at trillions of frames a second, which will add to its value ultimately, and help BRICS summarily move away from said dollar. So the last question, which you kind of stole in a good way because it means we were tracking mentally, as we typically do, is the aforementioned question about precious metals, specifically gold and silver, and I guess copper to some degree. And you touched on platinum, palladium. They've sort of been stilted a little bit. They've kind of been in a holding pattern. I was wondering when you think they're going to really start to break out. First quarter, second quarter? What are you seeing?
Cash seeks yield, as we were talking about before. Meaning what? It means that cash is going to make its way into assets that are moving. Okay. And out what the situation is doing is this: the mechanism of, up until very recently, of
Mm-hmm.
keeping rates artificially suppressed and therefore killing the purchasing power of the currency. All this does is open up a doorway for cash to make its way into risk assets or the stock market. And we've seen record high, record high, record high, record high. Like last year was epic. This year we haven't started out too well. And I think the performance of the stock market just so far this year is definitely subpar.
Mm.
And that's again why. action in the debt market. With regard to the price action of commodities and gold and silver and stuff like that, we will see these things move in a massive way. And this is it's a hedge against the debt market hyper bubble. And that's an understatement. I wish I had a better word for it. There's nothing like we've ever seen in the history of the world, and they keep inflating it as if that's going to fix the problem. It's kind of like throwing water on a drowning person, expecting it to fix the problem. All they're doing by inflating the debt is exacerbating the underlying issues here. The debt is a big problem. The interest on the debt, the currency creation out of nothing devalues the currency. And even talk about, let's just completely eliminate the debt ceiling because it's meaningless. And this came out of the mouth of obviously President Trump recently. It's not that it's meaningless. If he understands finance at all, and I know he did go to Wharton Business School, he does realize that currency creation is purchasing power negative, as is lower rates, which was a promise of his during the campaign, which means we suffer. But they can't fill in the little gaps, these politicians. It's unfortunate. They think people are just going to march along like the dumbed down sheep that they believe that we are. But we're not, you see. People like you and me and the people that follow our work are smart enough to see through the nonsense, the garbage, the guise, the veil that they throw in front of us. And unfortunately, it can't stop until it eventually does. And the moment when it does is going to be the implosion in the debt market. And that's when we're going to see commodities skyrocket. Again, these are massively undervalued assets across the board, especially gold and silver via the derivatives, an incredible thing. And you're going to see a lot of cash moving in there. I think I mean, look, I'm going to stick to my guns on this. If I had to predict a bottom for the Dow, it's probably somewhere around 8,000, could be lower than that. And I think we're going to get a 1-to-1 gold Dow ratio. So that would mean if Dow is 8,000, we're going to get $8,000 gold, and a potential 10-to-1 silver move, $800 or 15-to-1. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It just seems like that's the way it's going to play out moving forward. I don't think about the price action of gold and silver at all in the short run or whatever, because I know of the eventual implosion of the system is going to occur. It's just, and we don't get to choose that either. It's going to be at a moment of the central banks, who are the number one issuers and buyers of debt. When they stop this mechanism, when they say now is the time, well, that's when it's going to happen here. And then you're going to hear about stimulus and cutting rates to negative and this, that, and the other thing. Well, there's all a grand plan to bring us to our knees anyway. That's where they want us. And unfortunately, I still say we're going to face a resource issue on a grand scale, because when the debt, you have to understand, the world, it really comes down to this. It's not about the stock market. It's about liquidity. It's about the flow of credit through the system. And in debt market implosion means the flow of credit through the system stops, which means all transactions stop, pandemonium in the streets. That's where we're going. Zeros across the board with regard to people's bank accounts. It's just over. And that's really where they're pushing us. And then they're going to say, hey, hold on a minute. We have a solution for you. It's always the same. Here's the problem. Wait for the public outcry. And here's the solution. The solution is going to be a tokenized system, a digital system, whatever it's going to be. And I think it's going to happen sooner or later, because the developments with the BRICS nations, I'll be honest with you, I think there's almost a race here. That's why the bridge of the system started to be built even before the election selection here. Why we were told we were going to be the crypto capital of the world, or the Bitcoin president. We were told. They tell you what they're going to do before they do it. It's part of their playbook, not ours, but it's theirs. And it's an unfortunate thing, but maybe it's fortunate in a way. If we pay attention, we know what to do.
Exactly, which has been the thesis and the backbone of our discussion as always, Greg. So as we close up today, good sir, where can people find your work, and final thoughts for the audience?
Oh, I'm an easy guy to find. Just Google me. You can go to YouTube. You'll find me there. I do 2 times a day reports. You know that.
Yep.
I try to, at least, and I went on Sunday. So I'm pretty prolific.
I watch them and enjoy them very much immensely, and always laugh because I think about our conversations against those daily discussions. It's interesting. It gives me new material as well. Well, folks, as you know, Greg and I'm not a financial advisor, but Greg certainly is, and we're both proponents of precious metals, and we have a new sponsor to the channel, Noble Gold, who you know very well in the X22 and many other reputable channels. So if you are looking for precious metals, that is certainly a good resource to look at. And we'll leave that link in the description. If you are interested in investigating said BRICS nations' foreign currencies or adding to the cache of positions you have vis-a-vis dinar, dong, zim, and many others, we'll also leave that in the description as well. Greg Mannarino, thank you for joining us, good sir. Always a pleasure to have you, and we look forward to having you on board again shortly.
Excellent, man. Thanks for having me. Love being on your show.
Likewise, brother. God bless.